Picture this. It's 1970. You're in a hospital operating room, and a routine heart surgery has just gone terrifyingly wrong. The patient's blood pressure crashes, the monitors completely flatline, and after hours of desperate, absolutely futile attempts to bring him back, the renowned cardiac surgeon, Dr. Lloyd Rudy, has to make the call. The patient is pronounced dead. The machines are switched off. The chest is loosely closed to prepare for an autopsy, and the devastated medical staff is just standing there in the doorway, talking about what went wrong. 20 whole minutes pass. 20 minutes of total clinical death. But then, the impossible happens. The monitor twitches. A slow heartbeat returns. The man actually comes back. And you know, what he brought back with him challenges literally everything we think we know about reality. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to map out the ultimate mystery of consciousness. So you have to ask yourself, how does a man with no heartbeat and absolutely zero brain activity read post-it notes that were written after he died? Because this is where the mystery truly begins. When Dr. Rudy's patient finally woke up, he didn't just describe some vague, fuzzy dream. He described the chaotic, flatlining hospital scene with absolutely terrifying precision. He said he watched the whole thing from up near the ceiling. He saw the anesthesiologist rushing back into the room. He knew exactly who stood where. But the most mind-blowing part? He described reading specific post-it note phone messages that were stuck to a monitor, notes that the nurses had written and put there well after he was already clinically dead. Okay, let's dive into this. Dr. Lloyd Rudy wasn't just anyone. He was a serious man of science and medical authority, and he was completely bewildered by what he witnessed. As Dr. Rudy noted, there was absolutely no physical way the patient could have known about those calls or those notes. It's not like he woke up in the operating room and just saw them. He was out cold, in a coma for days in the ICU. Yet, he described the exact physical scene as if he had literally been floating right above his own lifeless body. Let's move into Section 1, the hallucination contradiction. Now, naturally, the skeptics' answer to all this is pretty straightforward, right? They say it's just a dying brain misfiring, a hallucination. But then something even stranger happened as researchers started collecting thousands of these accounts. And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem with the whole hallucination theory. Standard hallucinations, kind of like our dreams, are chaotic, heavily subjective, and entirely random. But near-death experiences, they are the exact opposite. They are highly ordered, incredibly vivid, and they follow a universal sequence that is identical across completely different cultures, different centuries, and different belief systems. So if this is really just the random misfiring of feeling neurons, why is everyone having the exact same perfectly structured experience? And the mystery deepens even further when we look at patients who shouldn't have any visual framework at all. Take the case of Vicky Umi Peg. Blind from birth, she had never seen a single thing in her entire life. Yet, following a really horrific traffic accident back in 1973, she was clinically dead for 4 minutes. When she was revived, she described suddenly experiencing this sharp, high-definition visual awareness. She watched the medical staff work on her body, she saw them cut her hair, and for the very first time ever, she clearly saw her own wedding ring, an object she had only ever known by touch. Psychologist Dr. Sharon Cooper, who actually specializes in the near-death experiences of the blind, studied Vicky's case extensively. And her findings, they completely prove that Vicky's visual experience mirrored those of sighted people perfectly. The only slight difference was that she struggled to name colors, simply because she had absolutely no earthly vocabulary for them. She had to describe them as different brightnesses of light. I mean, this completely shatters the conventional biological boundaries of perception. What came next changed everything. Researchers started wondering, well, maybe our cultural expectations of death and heaven are what shaped these visions. But Dr. Melvin Morse, a pediatrician at Seattle Children's Hospital, totally dismantled that theory. He studied toddlers and young children, kids who are way too young to have any cultural conditioning or religious preconceptions about the afterlife. And guess what? They drew the exact same highly specific visual sequences as the adults did. The pattern is just undeniable. Which brings us to Section 2, the universal journey. So what exactly is this pattern? Well, based on thousands of documented cases across decades from hospitals all over the globe, consciousness seems to embark on a highly specific, unfolding cosmic voyage. And it happens in 5 distinct chapters: separation, the passage, the encounter, the life review, and finally, the boundary. So as your guide for this explainer, let's step through exactly what it feels like in each of these stages, according to the thousands of people who have actually come back to tell the tale. Let's move to the beginning and see how this builds. Stage 1 starts with separation. The pain of the physical body just completely fades away. This strange, profound calm washes in. And suddenly, you realize you're floating above yourself, looking down at your own body. Experiencers describe this sharp, panoramic clarity. It's kind of like watching a fuzzy television your whole life and suddenly seeing in vivid 4K high definition. Gravity is completely gone. You just feel a gentle, effortless pull away from the physical world, rising naturally, almost like a helium balloon that's just been released from a hand. Then, the edges of the room go dark, and you enter the passage. You're moving with pure, incredible velocity, yet there's no rushing wind, there's no resistance at all. It is an infinite, frictionless darkness, way deeper than just being in a room with the lights off. It's a peaceful void. And way off in the distance, a point of radiance appears. As you rush toward it, it expands. It's not just a bright light. It is a pulsing, living source of radiant energy that emanates this overwhelming, almost bursting sensation of intense love. As you emerge into this light, you reach the third stage, the encounter. Figures actually step forward to meet you. These are often radiant, entirely whole versions of lost loved ones, completely free from any illness or age. Sometimes they're ancient guardians that just feel instantly familiar. But what is most striking here is the communication. It happens entirely without sound. You just think, and they immediately understand. The profound emotional realization here is this incredibly deep feeling of arriving home. You realize, in this place, that human speech was always just a frustratingly limited version of thought. This takes us to Section 3, the empathic life review. But this comforting reunion is really just a prelude to the most intense emotional peak of the journey. We are now entering Stage 4. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it is not just some simple cinematic playback of your memories. The life review is a profound, 360-degree reorganization of empathy. Your entire life overlaps all at once, past, present, and future. But here is the catch. You don't just watch your actions, you feel them. You feel the exact emotional impact of everything you've ever done, but entirely from the perspective of the other people involved. The sources share an incredibly emotional anecdote to highlight this. In one life review, a person recalled a brief, seemingly completely insignificant moment, giving a simple smile to a passing stranger. But in the review, they felt the event entirely from that stranger's perspective. They felt the heavy, crushing darkness that the stranger was carrying, and they felt the profound, life-altering relief that the smile brought. That tiny act of connection had literally saved the stranger from ending their own life. In this stage, you realize there is no judgment from above, only absolute clarity. Nothing is small, and everything in our lives connects in an intricate web we just cannot see from Earth. And now we approach Section 4, the final boundary. As the life review concludes, your awareness widens even further toward the absolute edge of the cosmos. Stage 5. People describe this boundary differently depending on how their mind interprets it. Sometimes it's a rushing river, sometimes a grand gate, or sometimes just a definite invisible line in space. But the feeling is universal, a calm, undeniable certainty that time is stopped, and that crossing this line means you will not return. For those who do come back, this serene moment is shattered by a sudden, jarring pull. They are yanked out of the infinite and slammed right back into the wet, heavy, cold gravity of their physical bodies. At this point, science struggles to explain what happened, bringing us to Section 5, the consciousness paradox. So the crucial point is this paradox right here. We typically assume the creator theory, that the brain is kind of like a music box. The gears turn, the neurons fire, and it generates the tune of consciousness. When the box breaks, well, the music stops. But the near-death data strongly suggests an alternative, the filter theory. What if the brain is actually like a radio receiver? A radio shapes the music, sure, and if you damage the speaker, the sound distorts, but the radio isn't composing the symphony. It is merely tuning in to a much wider external signal. We are left with a staggering list of unexplained phenomena. We've got blind patients possessing perfect visual awareness. We've got toddlers with zero cultural conditioning drawing the exact same universal patterns as adults. And the ultimate paradox, dying brains at the exact moment they are deprived of oxygen and actively shutting down, producing the most ordered, hyper-realistic, vivid, and transformative experiences of a person's entire existence. This completely breaks the traditional biological model of the mind. And this leaves a question that will linger long after this explainer ends. What if we are not a body that slowly developed awareness? What if instead we are boundless awareness that just temporarily borrowed a body? Let that sink in for a second and really think about what it means for your life right now. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this cosmic mystery, so please share your perspective in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey,